It was to be merely another heated argument in the National Assembly. MPs were preparing themselves for wordplay, policy debate, and possibly a couple of personal barbs that normally define South African parliamentary proceedings. No one expected, however, what Gayton McKenzie, the fiery politician and Patriotic Alliance leader, would unleash that day. Standing tall, fierce, and unapologetically outspoken, McKenzie stood up and publicly said what many of the opposition had only ever whispered behind closed doors. Ramaphosa must be arrested. Enough is enough. The words sliced through the chamber like lightning, shocking MPs into alertness. We cannot construct a new South Africa on the ashes of corruption, betrayal, and lies. McKenzie went on, his voice ringing off the walls. The response was immediate. ANC benches burst into a cacophony of shock, outrage, and stunned silence. Some MPs yelled McKenzie down, calling on him to retract his words. Others sat rooted to the spot as if the air had been punched out of the room. In moments, order disintegrated and Parliament descended into sheer pandemonium. McKenzie's dramatic call for Ramaphosa's arrest was not uninformed. His call came after weeks of growing pressure on the president following a succession of leaked documents and legal rumors that accused Ramaphosa of being involved in shady financial transactions, constitutional abuses, and the scandalous failure farm affair. A controversy surrounding undeclared foreign currency reportedly stashed on the president's private game farm. But what turned the brewing political matter into outright explosion was the latest confirmation of an international inquiry into Ramaphosa's overseas activities. The investigation, it is said, is focused on undeclared assets, offshore financial flows, and potential money laundering operations that could bring the incumbent head of state into grave wrongdoing. In accordance with McKenzie, he has first-hand access to proof implicating Ramaphosa in offshore deals and clandestine bank accounts. These are allegations the presidency has either dismissed or totally avoided, instead seeking solace in technicalities and political grandstanding. The people of South Africa deserve better, McKenzie bellowed. They deserve a leader who is not evading arrest warrants or seeking cover behind executive privilege. His sentiments rang well outside Parliament, spilling into the public arena like a wildfire. The immediate effect felt most intensely was within the African National Congress itself. Weakened already for years by internal factional fighting, corruption scandals, and eroding public confidence, the ANC was suddenly plunged into full-blown crisis mode. In reaction to McKenzie's appeal, the division within the governing party opened up significantly. Some of Ramaphosa's senior ANC colleagues quietly conceded that the president's increasing court wars were starting to become a political liability. Behind closed doors, they confirmed that the scandals surrounding the president were undermining the party's authority ahead of the next poll. Others came to his defense, branding McKenzie's comments treasonous, unfounded, and near political opportunism aimed at destabilizing the ANC's hold on power. This internal division within the ANC is not merely ideological. It is strategic, regional, and generational. Those who fought the liberation will regard Ramaphosa as a balancer, someone who for all his shortcomings can at least keep the party stable in times of turmoil. They are afraid that ousting him would leave the ANC vulnerable to a risky leadership vacuum. Young reform-oriented MPs though are getting restless. They are saying that the ANC should sever relationships with scandal-ridden leaders if it is to survive. Holding on to Ramaphosa for them is political suicide. The Speaker of the National Assembly tried several times to bring order back to the chamber, but it was too late. Screaming confrontations erupted all over the floor with members calling each other out for being traitors to the Constitution, covering up for criminals, or turning Parliament into a circus of political showmanship. The chamber was like a powder keg of raw passion, anger and brinkmanship for the first time in years. And at the root of it all was one man, President Sir Ramaphosa. Amid the hollering and pandemonium, Gayton McKenzie would not recant his words. I uttered what millions of South Africans think but are too intimidated to say, he said. His defiance charged opposition benches and motivated presidential critics who during months had demanded explanations for questions that still lingered unanswered. Arguably most deafening in all this political firestorm is the silence from the presidency. Up until now, Ramaphosa has not commented on McKenzie's accusations, so-called evidence, or the increasing demands for openness. His silence only generated more speculation. Has he been told to keep his mouth shut due to pending lawsuits? Is the ANC conducting desperate behind-the-scenes damage control? Or is his silence a tacit admission of frailty or worse, culpability? Civil society groups, youth movements, and community leaders are no longer waiting for the official word. Already numerous ones have started organizing protests with plans to march to the union buildings to demand accountability. "We cannot be led by a man who hides in the shadows," one activist said at a rally. "If he's innocent, let him face the music. If he's guilty, he has to go." Nationwide, voices previously reluctant to be heard are now being heard louder and more defiantly. Social media sites are filled with hashtags demanding Ramaphosa resign, and talk radio and town hall meetings are buzzed with outrage and incredulity. Everyday people are weighing in too. Small business owners talk of a president who has been unable to bring stability to an economy bruised by unemployment and load shedding. University students, growing increasingly frustrated at escalating costs and desolate job prospects, insist that the country cannot pay for a leader mired in scandal. Pensioners, some of whom survived apartheid and put their trust in the ANC, admit to feeling betrayed by a party that had promised freedom and dignity but now appears beset by corruption from within. Whether they back Ramaphosa or not, South Africans are seeking answers. People are asking tougher questions, no longer accepting silence, and demanding accountability from the powerful. The public court is in session, and this time perhaps there is nowhere to hide for those at the top. This is still a developing story, and what we've seen so far is only the beginning. More statements will come, more denials will follow, and more political spin will flood the airwaves. But history has shown that the truth, however deeply buried, always finds its way into the light. The uncertainty over South Africa is not merely about one individual. It is about whether the democratic institutions of this country can keep the mighty in check. It is about whether the ANC, a one-time pride of the liberation movements of Africa, can reinvent itself, or whether it will break under the strain of its own contradictions.